everyone, today I have the Samyang 75mm T1.9 Sony A7IV lens that I'm going to be testing out for both photo and video. So we're going to start off by doing photography on this lens on the Sony A7IV at our portrait photo shoot, so let's go.
Maybe here so we can see kind of like the water and the branch behind you. Ooh, that's so pretty. That looks so dreamy there. Oh, okay. That was touching my head.
The Samyang V-AF 75mm T1.9 is part of Samyang's new video autofocus lens lineup. This is a full-frame Sony E-mount lens, so for today's photo shoot and review, I'm using it on the Sony A7IV for photography. We will also, of course, be taking a look at this lens performance for video, where Dan will be using the Sony A7sIII. It's great to see these video lenses are autofocus. It makes them a lot more versatile than just Cine MF lenses. If you're a videographer who also dabbles in photography, it means you can have a lens which easily does both. Since I am a photographer, we're going to start with the photo side of things. During my time using this lens, I found it to be very snappy and responsive for photography. You can see in the picture-in-picture, IAF is sticky on LoRa and the lens is almost always ready to go. As per its name, this lens has a maximum t-stop of 1.9, so for photography, it's a maximum aperture of f1.8.
I wanted to stand just here. I'm gonna get a super wide shot here. Maybe we can even do like a side-on. Yeah, nice.
Throughout the video, I'll be sharing side-by-side comparisons between other lenses in the similar f1.8 and price range. I always find it's really helpful to see the quality of a lens when you compare it to other images. Let me know if you like this as well in the comments.
And then let's head around to the other side.
The colors straight out of camera are very neutral, which has been a little bit of a different direction for Samyang recently. Usually their lenses have a color cast that leans on the warm side, but the 85mm f1.4 Mark II I reviewed a couple of weeks ago, and now this lens looks very neutral. The Samyang V-AF 75mm is a small and lightweight lens at only 280 grams, just like every lens in the V-AF range, which is obviously geared toward using it on a gimbal. This lens features a very grippy focus ring which has 300 degrees of focus rotation, which is linear when choosing to use the lens in manual focus. The V-AF 75 has a custom switch which you can use to customize the function of the focus ring. It has a focus hold button, a tally lamp on the side and front of the lens, which I guess is handy to let your subject and team know when you're recording. It's weather sealed and has a 58mm filter thread. One more interesting aspect about this lens is it features a new metal accessory mount on the front of the lens. Samyang claimed this mount supports V-AF exclusive accessories, so it will be interesting to see what they introduce in the future. In my opinion, these accessories need to be quite unique to make it worth it to only be compatible on these V-AF lenses. Maybe an electronic ND filter would be great to see, which could be doable if the lens is powering these accessories. Otherwise, if it's just standard accessories like normal ND filters, it could be frustrating that it might not be compatible with your other lenses. Personally, as someone who already does video, I have so many filters and don't need another one unless it adds something special to the mix. This is all my speculation, by the way, because they haven't released any information or accessories as of the time I'm recording this video.
And then that looks really cool with both your hands just resting over your knee.
Interestingly, Samyang have the photo version of this lens, the AF 75mm f1.8, which is 230 grams and also at a cheaper price point. So the V-AF version is actually heavier at 280 grams. We do have weather sealing on the V-AF though, which the original Photo AF 75 doesn't have.
That looks so pretty. It's like, it looks really whimsical but super moody at the same time. I'm using a viewpoint.
Since when?
Since right now.
Like I mentioned earlier, this lens is very responsive for photography. In terms of autofocus accuracy, it was able to keep focus on the subject for the majority of the photo shoot. I did end up with lots of tack-sharp images. Since you've seen plenty of example photos now, you can see that this lens is extremely sharp. I tested it both at wide open f1.8 and at f2.8 as well. You can see lots of texture and detail. I noticed the autofocus accuracy only struggled slightly with faster movements. While Laura was skipping towards me, I was able to get the first couple of photos in focus before the lens became sluggish with autofocus and the last couple of photos are out. Otherwise, I had a really good in-focus ratio for this photo shoot, especially considering I was shooting wide open. I had the highest in-focus ratio during mid-length and full body shots, slightly less with close-up headshots, and the least in-focus photos with fast movement.
All right, beautiful.
The bokeh is very round throughout the frame when taking photos wide open. It's nice and clean too. As you bump your aperture up, you can see a faint nonagon shape starting to appear in the bokeh due to the 9 aperture blades of this lens. This lens faces the same conundrum I find with other f1.8 lenses. Since the bokeh is a little smaller, depending on where you're shooting, the background can appear a little too busy for my personal taste. I find while you can create nice background to foreground separation with this lens, the depth of field is not super creamy and it looks a bit textured. Again, this is just my personal opinion as I prefer smoother or dreamier lenses for portraits. This more natural look will work for so many people.
Ooh, that's really nice though. I love that when you had your hands up, if you could have them kind of like that.
There was definitely no sun on the day of our photo shoot, but I took the lens out during the afternoon on a sunny day to check out the lens flare. This lens has a defined lens flare. It fills the majority of the frame with a red semicircle, which can both work in photos but also look distracting. It just depends what you're going for. There is moderate ghosting as well. It should be noted that there is no lens hood with any of the V-AF lenses. Unless they design something specific for this new mount they've created, you would need to use a matte box or filter thread lens hood. By the way, if you want to download a high-res JPEG sample gallery of photos taken with this Samyang V-AF 75 T1.9 on the A7IV, I'll leave a link to my blog where you can find those. I took photos on a separate day so you can take a closer look at these things like lens flare, CA, sharpness, and bokeh. Speaking of CA, this 75mm has a moderate amount of chromatic aberration. Again, I couldn't see any other day of our photo shoot due to the overcast weather, but in the sun you can see a fair amount of red and magenta fringing. This lens is great for video and I did experience a few of the same things I did in photo. We're using the Sony A7sIII for these tests, handheld at 4K 50p. We have the camera set to continuous autofocus with a wide focus point and IAF on to let the lens do all the work to see how it performs. Just like photo, this lens does a decent job at keeping up with the subject during slower movements. We made sure to capture a variety of footage during these video tests, including walking shots. This lens is very sharp for video and you can see lots of detail in each of the frames. Again, I found it had a harder time keeping focus during the close-up portraits. You can see the focus slightly slipping as Laura or Dan move around, and sometimes it wanted to focus on her eyelashes more compared to her iris. The bokeh looks beautiful in the background of these shots. There is no jittering in the background, which I have experienced with the Samyang AF 135 1.8 when it was first released, and even though this lens has moderate focus breathing, the focus and bokeh is really solid. As a comparison, here's a video shot from the photocentric 85mm f1.4 Mark II, which also has moderate focus breathing. You can see the bokeh and focus shifts a lot more while the subject is moving around, which can make the video shots look distracting. The 75mm in comparison is a stronger video lens. I have tests on a tripod to take a look at too. This V-AF lens is able to keep focus during the majority of the time I'm walking towards the camera. Again, you can see it slipping focus the closer I am to the lens. When I realized it was doing this, I tested out moving towards and away from the lens at a closer range, and you can see the focus slippage is consistent. I have the Sony A7S III focus shift sensitivity set to 7, which is the fastest setting. As you can see in these shots, the focus shift of the Samyang V-AF 75 is quite sluggish. This does look cinematic for video, however, I personally like to have lenses that are fast at shifting focus when set to the fastest setting. That way, you always have the option to make it slower if you're after cinematic shots. Overall though, I think this lens has good autofocus performance for video, especially for the price point. Not to mention, we are doing these video tests wide open at f1.8 to make it more challenging for the lens and to easily be able to see its performance. So if you're not a wide open shooter, you'll most likely see even better autofocus results. So if you're after a portrait focal length video at an affordable price, this lens is definitely worth considering. So that is it for today's review of this Samyang 75mm Cine AF lens. Let me know what you think of the lens and of the photos and the videos that we got down in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I will see you all next time. Bye!